The morning Michael Carter sold his broken old car, the sky over Ohio looked heavy and colorless, as if it knew something life-changing was about to happen. The car had been sitting in his driveway for weeks, paint faded, engine coughing like an exhausted old man, its windshield cracked from a winter storm years earlier. It was the last solid thing he owned, the last reminder of a time when life felt predictable. Michael was a single father, worn down by grief, bills, and responsibility, standing at the edge of a choice that felt impossible. He needed money for a one-way train ticket, not for adventure or escape, but for hope. As he wiped grease from his hands and looked at the car one final time, he had no idea that this small, painful decision would echo across the country and end in a miracle no one could have planned. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one good decision can change everything, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive and reaching hearts that need them. Michael lived in a quiet, working-class neighborhood outside Cleveland, a place where everyone knew everyone else's struggles, even if they never spoke about them. He had been raising his 8-year-old son, Noah, alone ever since his wife passed away from a sudden illness 3 years earlier. The loss had hollowed him out, but Noah gave him a reason to wake up every morning. Michael worked nights at a warehouse, loading trucks until his back screamed and his hands went numb, then spent his days making sure his son had breakfast, homework help, and some sense of normalcy. Money was always tight, but recently it had become unbearable. Noah had been accepted into a specialized medical program in Chicago after doctors discovered a condition that required long-term treatment. The program offered hope, but it was far away, and Michael couldn't afford the travel. The cheapest option was a train ticket, and even that felt like a mountain he couldn't climb. The car was his lifeline, but it was also a burden. Repairs cost more than the car was worth, and without it, Michael would have to walk or take buses to work. Still, the decision was clear. He listed the car online for a low price, knowing no one would pay much for a vehicle that barely ran. When a collector from out of state showed interest, Michael assumed it was a mistake. The man, whose name was Jonathan Pierce, arrived in a quiet black SUV, wearing simple clothes that didn't hint at his status. He walked slowly around the car, touching the rusted door, peering under the hood, studying it with unusual focus. Michael explained everything honestly, that the car was old, unreliable, and only good for parts or memories. He never mentioned the train ticket or his son. Pride still clung to him, even in desperation. Jonathan listened, nodded, and surprised Michael by asking about the car's history. It turned out the vehicle had been one of the first models from a small American manufacturer Jonathan had admired as a child. To Michael, it was just transportation, but to Jonathan, it represented a forgotten chapter of innovation and resilience. After a long pause, Jonathan made an offer that stunned Michael. It was far more than the car was worth, enough to cover the train ticket and then some. Michael tried to refuse, insisting it was too much, but Jonathan calmly insisted. Papers were signed, keys exchanged, and the car was loaded onto a transport truck. Michael stood there, confused, relieved, and suspicious all at once. He felt as though the universe had tilted slightly in his favor, but he didn't yet understand how far it would go. With the money from the sale, Michael bought the train ticket to Chicago, secured temporary housing near the hospital, and arranged time off work he could barely afford. The journey was long and exhausting, but for the first time in months, he felt a quiet sense of purpose. Noah slept against his shoulder as the train cut through states and landscapes that blurred together, each mile carrying them closer to something uncertain but necessary. Treatment began almost immediately, and while it was physically and emotionally draining, doctors were optimistic. Michael spent his days learning medical terms, filling out forms, and holding his son's hand through procedures he never imagined facing as a parent. Weeks later, while Michael sat in a hospital waiting room scrolling through news on his phone, he froze. An article had gone viral about a billionaire purchasing a forgotten classic car for $1 million at a private auction. The car was unmistakable. The scratches, the faded paint, the cracked windshield, all of it matched. The article revealed that Jonathan Pierce, a self-made billionaire known for his quiet philanthropy, had restored the car and sold it to raise awareness and funds for children's healthcare programs across the United States. At the end of the article, there was a small but powerful detail. Jonathan had set aside a portion of the sale specifically for the previous owner, a single father who had sold the car out of necessity and honesty. Michael's hands shook as he read further. Jonathan had tracked him down through the sale paperwork and had already established a trust fund in Noah's name. It was enough to cover medical treatment, education, and a future Michael had been afraid to imagine. There was no publicity stunt, no cameras, no conditions. Just a quiet act of gratitude and respect for a man who had been willing to let go of his last asset for his child. As the weeks turned into months, Noah's health improved steadily. Michael found work in Chicago, supported by the stability he had never known before. He often thought about how close he had come to giving up, how easily bitterness could have taken root. Instead, one honest sale, one broken car, and one unexpected buyer had rewritten their lives. Michael never met Jonathan again, but he carried the lesson with him every day, that kindness doesn't always arrive loudly, and miracles often wear ordinary faces. If this story has touched your heart so far, if it has reminded you that hope can appear in the darkest moments, please take a moment to comment below and share what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. Near the end of this video, I want to ask you from the heart, if this story moved you, inspired you, or gave you even a small sense of faith in humanity, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and stay connected with this channel. Stories like Michael's exist everywhere, and together we can help them be heard. Just before we close, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and whether you believe kindness always finds its way back. Michael and Noah's journey reminds us that even the most broken things can carry unimaginable value, and sometimes letting go is exactly what opens the door to everything we need.